Okay, we're going to talk about modules in this screencast, and I already have some starter code populated on my screen, so you should have that ready to go. And we're going to talk about just modules in this part of the notes, and then for the rest of the if elif else notes, you'll have to refer to other screencasts. Already populated is a definition of modules. So you can see here it says that modules are files that contain code you can import and use in your own program. True. Also called other names. So modules you'll see often in Python, but you'll also see this same concept referred to as packages, libraries. There are various terms that you'll see that mean roughly the same thing. It's code that you import and then you use. All right. So the one we're going to focus on today, all right, to demonstrate this is a module called the random module. This is going to be really useful in this course because we want to create some chance in our programs to make them a little more interesting. So for example, if you're going to create a game, you might want to have some random chance included. The random module will give us access to that sort of randomness. All right. So the random module will contain functions that we can use that's related to generating these random numbers. It has documentation, as all modules, all libraries have documentation included. And this documentation can be found on the official Python website here at this URL. I already have this pulled up in my other tab here, so let's take a peek quick. It says it's for generating pseudo-random numbers, which is exactly what we want. And you can see if you scroll down, do it real quickly, there's a bunch here, including some examples at the bottom, which might be useful. But there's all sorts of different functions that you can find documentation for. So we're just going to scratch the surface in these notes about what you can do with this module. But what we're going to focus on is, if you scroll down just a little bit, you can see functions for integers. That's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at two functions included in this module, the randrange right here. You can see there's two implementations of that. And then you can see there's a randint function as well. So those are the two we're going to look at and focus on for these notes. Now, to get access to these, we have to import this module first. So this will be a simple import statement. Import random, the name of the module that you want, and then Python's going to go out and it already knows where to find that information, and it's gonna pull that code base in such that you can use it. All right, so this is all it takes to get access to it. Now we have access to this entire set of code we just looked at on the other tab. All right, so as I said, two functions we're going to look at are randint and randrange. So first, let's focus on randint. It's a bit simpler and more straightforward than randrange. So randint just requires two integer arguments. It returns a random number between those two values inclusive. So that's a great definition. Let's look at it, what that looks like in documentation. You can see what they show you is they show you how to use the function. So you use it by calling the module, the func dot notation, the function from within the module, and then you need to pass this one two arguments, A and B they refer to them as. And it says it's going to return you a random number between A and B. Sounds simple enough. Let's give it a shot here. Let's just say we want to print out a random number. That we need to refer to the module, name of the function we're interested in, and then passing it two values. So let's just say we want a number between 1 and 10. Okay, so I got 7 that time. Now if I do it again, it's likely that I'll get a different number. I got 3 that time, right? So you can see here there's some randomness already happening. We get a bunch of different numbers. Now that's one way to get a random number. The other function that this module provides is called randrange. It's a little more sophisticated. There's more than one implementation. Now, at a very minimum, you're required to pass one integer argument, and it returns a random number from a range it creates from that integer. So again, let's jump over to the documentation. So at a minimum, you have to do this. You have to at least pass it a stopping value. If you pass it the stopping value, it's going to generate a range between 0 and the stopping value exclusive. So let's see what that looks like. And we'll just print it out here. All the same way, similarly to randint. So this one's called randrange. You have to at least pass it the stopping value. So if we want to stop at 10, right, it's going to give us a random number between 0 and 9 in this case, right? So random number from a range created from the int. Now this one was inclusive. It's important to note that this one is exclusive. So you need to make sure if you're trying to create 10 numbers, this will do it, but it's going to create it from starting at 0, start counting at 0. And if you wanted to implement this such that it would give you 1 through 10, you could do a simple fix and just add 1 to your range. Now that gives you 1 through 10. Not that we can see it here in the output, but the range of possible values here would be 1 through 10. The range of possible values here would be 0 through 9. And that's not, you may have noticed, the only implementation of this. So if you look at the documentation again, randrange can also accept a start value, so you can change where you're starting the range from. And then there's also a step value that we'll look at in a later set of notes. All right, but just to see what that 2-argument call looks like, let's go ahead and do that. So you've got randrange, and then if you want 1 through 10 without having to increment your range, you can just say 1, comma 11. I want 1 through 11 exclusive of 11, and that'll give me the same range we just had above, which is going to be 1 through 10. And again, not that you're seeing those ranges here, but you're seeing a number from those ranges in the output. All right, so that's how 2 different ways, 2 different functions to generate random numbers. So time for challenge. So dice challenge number 1, I want you to create 2 die variables, maybe call them die 1, die 2, and then simulate each die, rolling each die, and generating a random number between 1 and 6. And can you do this using each of these different functions? Right, so go ahead and pause the video, give that a shot, and then come back and we'll solve it together. All right, so let's look at how we would solve this. So let's say we have these 2 variables, so die 1, maybe die 2, and we're going to store random values in each of these. So we're going to want random dot rand, let's say randint. And if we want randint to be between 1 and 6, remember these values are inclusive, so we can just say 1, 6. And that'll give us our value that we need. For randrange, we would have to say, again, we want the start value to be 1, but now it's exclusive, so we'll say 7. And those will give us our 2 random die rolls. So when we can print them out, we could say roll 1 is whatever die 1 ends up being. And roll 2. Concatenation again here, which means we'll need to convert to a string. And then we'll say die 2. So we did. Randint, not randint. Can't spell today. All right. Okay, there we go. So now you get 2 random die rolls.